This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Tech, show number 143, recorded on November 8th, 2013. Here on Home Tech, we cover all your favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home, news, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the Average Tech Guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live right here from the AverageGuy.tv studios in Bellevue, Nebraska. And we post the show with some world-class show notes each week out at the AverageGuy.tv. If you have questions, comments, or contributions, you can contact me and or the show via email. Just send us an email, podcast at theaverageguy.tv. You can find me on Twitter at jcollison, or follow the show schedule on our Twitter account at theaverageguy.tv. You can also join us for live chat during the show over at the AverageGuy.tv live, right below the live stream window there. There's some chat you can join us for. Actually, I think on that side, it's to the right of the video screen. And love to have you join us via a tablet or a mobile device as well. We've enabled some low bandwidth streaming out at the live page, so you can give that a try. And if you do, give me some feedback on it. We also have a new YouTube high band. It's not really new anymore, but we have a high bandwidth page as well. Head out to the AverageGuy.tv, look in the upper right-hand corner. Click on that, and it will get you there. All the options are out at the AverageGuy.tv. All right, a Friday evening show for you. I was out last night at a Brian Regan concert. If you haven't seen Brian Regan, he's a comedian here in the United States. Super, super funny, super, super clean, and I took my kids to it. If you haven't watched him on YouTube, go out and Google him now. Once you start watching him, he is hard to get away from, and so we got concert tickets out at the Holland Center here in Omaha last night, and so no Thursday night, and I asked the guys, hey, would you guys mind moving this to Friday, and they did. Of course, if you're listening to this, the recorded version months after the fact, you don't really care, but I appreciate you guys coming out on a Friday night. All right, let's get some introductions done. All the way over to the left, and the guy who joins us almost every week, we get him when he's in school, Christian Johnson. Christian, how are you?
I'm doing well. It's getting pretty cool here, weather-wise. So I've broken out the University of Maryland snow hat, and I guess it's not really a snow hat because it doesn't snow that much here, but it's a winter hat. And other than that, just plugging away. And first semester is coming to a close 5 weeks or so. So
that's crazy. That's crazy to think already that you're almost done with your first semester there, and it'll be Christmas before we know it, and you'll be starting second semester, and then you'll be graduating and getting a job, and it'll just go like that.
Yep, sir.
All right, well, welcome. Next to him, and a guy who is all Chromebooks all the time, Nathaniel Linnelly. Nathaniel, how are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Welcome in. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, we have gotten our first snow this week, and fortunately it's melted off so that I can get out there and rake all the leaves that are underneath the snow up now that it's dropped below 30 every day.
Yeah, that's for sure. It always seems like, I always like if we get just about 3 or 4 days of wind and knock all those leaves down, and then a clear weekend to get all that stuff up, right? And then,
right.
Yeah.
I'm hoping this is the perfect, clear, dry weekend to get it all bagged up, at least what has fallen already.
Yeah, yes, I'm with you. This is the weekend, although I look up in the trees just to make sure that they're all, because you hate to do that, and then the next weekend you come out and it's a blanket of leaves again. That just drives me nuts. So
we have a lot of different kinds of trees, so some drop early and some drop late, and some don't drop till the spring, so it's hard to predict.
Yeah, so, well, welcome. Glad you're here. And then Rennie Phipps, he lives in a place that doesn't, maybe the leaves never fall down, or maybe he never gets snow. How are you, Rennie?
I'm good, Jim. No, we don't get any snow, mate. It's around 30 here too, but 30 degrees Celsius. It's which is about 90, I think, in pounds, shillings, and pence. But it's a beautiful day today. It's Saturday at lunchtime, and the wife's away. She's up at Noosa enjoying some time with some of her girlfriends up there, and my son's gone off to work, so it's just me and 2 cats and a bunch of birds. And actually, we've had this cockatoo hanging around lately. You know what a cockatoo looks like? It's a big white parrot with,
Are they pretty
and
loud?
they make a hell of a noise.
Yeah, they're pretty loud, aren't they?
Yeah, so you might hear that sometimes during the podcast. If you do, just let me know and I'll mute. But
just shoot it with a BB gun or something like that. Just hey.
No.
I'm sure they're protected, right?
No, I'm not sure if they are, actually. there's millions of them. They might be.
Maybe not. Maybe not. Well, welcome. Glad
Thanks.
you could make it from your place there in Brisbane. Appreciate it. You coming out tonight and your afternoon to join us. All right, let's get started. We have a Nathaniel was the recipient of an item through the Tech Scholarship Fund. We've been pimping that over the last couple podcasts, and it's been kind of fun to watch you guys kind of review these items and give them some real world tests. And if you're wondering what the Average Guy Tech Scholarship Fund basically is, when you guys purchase stuff at theaverageguy.tv/Amazon, we make a little commission, and then I just take that commission and turn it around and buy things for guys who want to test stuff. So Nathaniel came to me and said, "Hey, I'd like to try this wireless, this Seagate GoFlex satellite wireless hard drive. Basically, it's a unit that you can run both in your house or in your vehicle, as we found out." And so Nathaniel picked that up a couple weeks ago. We just posted, just as we're doing this, so today's November 8th, we just posted it tonight, kind of the first part of his review on it, but I wanted to have him on to kind of talk a little bit about it as well. So Nathaniel, walk us through that a little bit and tell us about the success or failure you had with that unit.
Right. So when you announced the Average Guy Scholarship, I started thinking in my head, I've got to think of something really interesting to take advantage of this. And I realized immediately that when we travel as a family, we've got all our devices, but then the problem is we can't fit a lot on the iPads or the iPhones or whatever because they don't have a ton of storage, and I've got this media library built up. So I wanted to find a way to share the media on the devices and have it be flexible, because inevitably the night before a plane trip I'm down on the computer trying to copy movies over USB to the different devices, and it takes longer than I think, and then I avoid packing, and it's a problem. So what this is it's made by Seagate, and it's no bigger, well, it's a little bit bigger than most portable hard drives today. It's thicker, but it has a mechanical 500 gig hard drive inside, a battery, and a Wi-Fi adapter of some sort. And you can hook it up to your computer and copy over your media, photos, videos, and music, and then you take it in your bag or in the car or wherever, and it can create its own Wi-Fi network, which you join with your device, and then you stream the media to your device rather than copying it to the device and playing it. So that's a basic concept, and I thought, well, that's a really smart idea. What I'm going to do this Thanksgiving is fill it up with movies and put it in the van, and as we drive down to Des Moines, the kids will be able to stream different movies and shows to their devices, and we'll see how it holds up and how long the battery lasts.
Now, you'd said in the review that they're projecting about a 5-hour battery life on that, right? Under normal conditions, you had some doubt of that, maybe?
Yeah, I haven't really found out, but in my initial testing, I'm guessing they say 5 hours if you're using one device streaming MP3s. I don't think it's going to last that long. What's that?
That's a rechargeable battery, Nathaniel?
Yeah, so that's nice. It has a small DC in port, and that they include a cable that you has the round plug, and then a USB on the other side, and a standard AC USB pack that you plug in to charge it. You can also charge it over USB on your computer. So it is a rechargeable battery built in. So that does make it useful. And the GoFlex series from Seagate is their design where you pop off a piece and it has the SATA ports exposed right there. And you get their GoFlex line is this small triangular adapter that just snaps into there, and then you have a SATA USB connection right there. So it's pretty fast, and it can charge and copy the data that way. They do include, I think I said they include in the box a car power adapter, so you could potentially power this from the cigarette lighter in your car to keep it going for longer trips.
Yeah, I would think that would be the way to go, right? If you're going to be your trip from Minneapolis down to Des Moines, 6 hours, maybe 6-7 hours, right?
4.
Oh, is that quick?
I could get to Lincoln in 6-7 hours.
Okay, well,
Got
then
a-
you should
got
come
a
to
fast
Omaha.
car.
Yeah, I
You should
should.
come to Omaha a little more often if it's that close. But in theory, right, you could just, if you were on a longer trip, you would want to maybe just plug that thing in. Or if if you're going to have multiple, because you might have 2 or 3 video streams trying to come off of it. Is that right?
Yep. So what we tested, the boys and I got all the devices out, and we connected one and started a video, and then we connected another one and started a video, and we got to 4. We could run 4 devices streaming a video, but it took a while for the 4th one to buffer up. But then they were playing okay, and we're all in the same room, so it wasn't a long range. The 5th one killed it. The 5th device would connect, and then another one would stop, and then the 5th one wouldn't play. So 4 was a max. I'd say 3 is probably realistic if you're all streaming video. But that's fine. I mean, that's pretty reasonable. I don't think I'm trying to power video off this little device for a crowd.
Yeah, so 3 or 4, which in a car is probably very realistic. Now, was that all video? It was every single one of those streams video?
Yeah, all 4 were video streams, different formats. So the basic way that it works, back up a little bit, is you turn it on and it powers up the drive, and then it has a little Wi-Fi indicator, and it broadcasts its own wireless SSID, and it says GoFlex satellite something something. And what you have to do with your device, whether it's an iPad or a laptop, is you have to tell your device to join the Wi-Fi network of the Seagate. So you're taking yourself offline in a sense. Then once you're on that, you have 2 choices. Once you've connected to the GoFlex wireless, you can open up your browser, which will automatically go to the GoFlex interface because you can't get out. And then they have a nice web browsing page to load videos or music and browse the content that's on the drive. So the advantage of that is that I can share the content on here with someone that has a mobile device or a Wi-Fi enabled device that doesn't necessarily have the Seagate Media app. So that's a nice flexible option. The other is to use their Seagate Media app, which is available only for Android and iOS, not Windows Phone. But and that just puts another skin on it, and it has a little more flexibility in browsing. But either will work fine. I didn't notice a improvement over performance using one or the other. We tried both.
So even on the phone, I could open the browser on the phone, and it would attach to it, and I could go to the interface, and it's it's clean enough that on a phone I could get to stuff and play it.
Oh yeah, yeah. So they'll sort it by category. You can say show me videos, and it'll show you all the videos that have been loaded, independent of what folder hierarchy you use on the drive. Or you can say browse folders, and you literally browse the folders that you copied over to this drive. So if you copied over a folder of TV, a folder of movies, you could browse through those folders if you wanted through a hierarchy. So that worked fine too. So you know, the Chromebook, for example, doesn't have an app, but if I join the Chromebook to this, then I can browse the content and play movies and media off the Chromebook.
And you know, one of the devices we had tried a year or 2 ago, and in fact Tony Rayner is out in chat, and he had tried it too. He'd won this at the Home Service Show meetup a couple years back. I don't remember if it was last year or the year before, but that could make a connection to the internet and then be its own hotspot. Does that have any way to connect so that you can kind of pass internet connectivity through it to make
No, I
connectivity?
don't think so. I think it's just a dumb, you know, self ad hoc network type device.
Yeah, so you're completely offline. If you're going to connect to that thing, which in the car, right, for the most part.
Yeah, well,
not
with an
that bad of a
iPad and a Chromebook and devices that don't have cellular built in, then it doesn't matter. So, and I would assume on a phone that your 3G and your 4G cellular radio would still work. Your Wi-Fi is just connected to this. So you could still use your phone for calls or things like that. I don't think you'd want to have music playing while you're on a call, though.
Well, you never know. right? Maybe on the phone it mutes the music because it's just a media player at that point. A lot of
Yeah.
phones will automatically mute the media as it's playing and then take the phone call. And then
Yep.
when you hang up the phone, media comes back on.
Yeah, that'd be a good thing to test. I would expect that to happen on the phone.
Yeah.
Nathaniel, will it handle 2 different streams at the same time? Like you
Yeah,
got 2
up to
kids in
4.
the back? Up to 4, okay, right.
Yeah, and I suppose if you're doing music streams, you could probably do more because it's a lot less data.
Yeah.
But we had 4 videos playing, and all these videos were formatted for Apple TV type format. They weren't compressed a lot for like mobile, and they weren't huge files either. So they're your average download from iTunes. So what they really do is on the device when you plug it in, there's a lot of content on the device already. They have software that you can install. So if you wanted to install the Seagate Media Sync app, you could use that to sync media to your device and use it as a media aggregator, I guess. But you can also just drag and drop from your hard drive to this hard drive over USB, and that works very easily too. I did test with USB 2, and it was your typical slow speed. It was a lot faster over USB 3, around 37 to 40 megabytes per second, and that saves a lot of time when you've got 500 gigs of data. But once it's on here, it just sits and then the phone browses it. In terms of the DRM content, so I have media that I bought from iTunes, usually the digital copy that comes with the disc when you order it. And as long as the device I'm trying to play it on, like my phone or an iPad that I own, is signed into the iTunes store and authorized, then it'll play it just fine off of here because that DRM just passes through, and the device essentially doesn't know whether it's local on its own storage or whether it's off this. So all the iTunes media that I had purchased and done worked fine. It would not play on things like a Chromebook or a Surface or anything that couldn't authorize the DRM through the iTunes store, which is as expected. So they've got a lot of stuff that comes with it, including a lot of tutorial videos right on here. So how to update the firmware, how to copy media, and they really promote make it iPad friendly because those formats will play easily.
Yeah, that'll work. It'll work just great. Put it on there. And so let me go back to the backup you said. So it's got some sync software on it. So in theory, it could be your mobile backup, right? So you bring it into the house, plug it in, sync it to whatever folders you already have set up that have all your media in them. So if you're adding music and stuff, it'll pick up the latest. Then just on your way out, right? Just that way you're not the night before. Because I'm with you, Nathaniel. The night before I travel, I don't know why, but I hate to pack, right? I hate packing. I will wait till an hour before I'm supposed to leave in the morning before I pack, right? And it's like I need to be under pressure to only pick those things that I need, right? It's one of those things I do to myself. But in this case, if I had set it on sync, right, it would always be there, plugged in, ready to go for me. I could snag that thing, throw it in the car, maybe plug it in, and on a long trip, it's just ready to go because it would just sync with whatever libraries that I have locally there.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a manual sync, like you have to open the software and say, I want to sync my tunes, but I'll have to try that for the next part 2. So there's questions I still have. So I did some of the initial testing, but there's things like that I don't know. That's good to find out. And if it's NTFS format, it's fine on Windows, but then on a Mac, out of the box, a Mac cannot write to an NTFS formatted drive. So I think they include some of the third-party utilities to allow NTFS writing. So that's a good thing to test that software and see if it's automatic or that. It's good to mention that if you had a media library that was under 500 gigs and you had it copied to this all the time, that's a really good backup of that. So if you're out traveling and your house burns down while you're gone, you may have all your media here with you.
You've got a backup of it, right? Yeah.
I don't think I would plan on that as my strategy, but it's a benefit.
It's a good one to take with you anyways. I really like this idea. In fact, I think it's the future in automobiles. I mean, I think in years to come, we're going to see cars come with hard drives and Wi-Fi or whatever we decide to do, Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, whatever. And you can just, your car will pull in the driveway and it'll just start syncing with whatever. You can set that up on the Wi-Fi. I don't know why they haven't done that yet, right?
Well, they're getting closer.
Yeah.
So our Odyssey has a hard drive built in, and it rips CDs. So you put an audio CD in, and it'll just rip it to the hard drive automatically, and then you can browse it without having to have the CD. So since we bought it used, I got some music from the previous owner that hadn't been deleted.
Hadn't deleted it off.
What did they leave behind? But, I mean, that's the next step. They've got that, and now that CDs are going away, the Wi-Fi connection to your house sounds like the next logical thing.
Yeah, I think so. I pretty much already do that today. I've got a device that just sits. It's a phone that just sits in the car.
Mm-hmm.
That in the big drawback to that is that here in Nebraska, it gets really, really cold in the winter, and these phones are not rated to sit in a vehicle that's it's where it's 5 or it's 0 or 5 degrees Fahrenheit, and the screens will just shatter like that, if they get too cold. We've seen that happen on devices before. So you can do that if you live in California or there in Brisbane. You can have that phone in the car all the time and just make that a permanent device that's in there. And when you pull it in the garage, it'll automatically sync. You leave it plugged in, and turn the car on, it'll just recharge itself, like my Bluetooth device does. So we're getting there, I guess is what we're saying. We're getting there. Well, Nathaniel, thanks for working that through. Anything else that you want to mention? Your part 1 post is up, and if folks want to go read about it, but anything else?
Yeah, I guess the post has got a lot of detail. I think I was a little verbose, but I did try some different devices and formats, and I put that matrix up in the post that says, this file will work on this device, but not on this one. And it was interesting that I did test with a Surface RT, and the file it could not play was a WMV, which made me puzzled. But mostly your iPad-friendly stuff will play on anything: MP4s, MP3s, AAC files that are not protected. That kind of stuff plays well. The Surface, though, since maybe because it doesn't have an app, it would have to download each file before it could play it, whereas all the other devices could stream the file and not download it, which is the point. And if you have some odd formats, you can play them through third-party apps. So I gave an example of using VLC on the phone to browse the device as a unplug-and-play media server, and stream content that the Seagate app cannot play. So AVIs and MKVs even played through VLC. So it's a kind of an add-on if you have. No, I didn't try OGG Vorbis, but I bet VLC would play OGG Vorbis.
Somebody always has to ask that question.
I had to limit my file formats to try.
Some obscure, for sure. Well, the link to that, I think we pay $90 to have that when we bought that for you and have it shipped. It was an ideal Tech Scholarship Fund item. We're trying to keep those about $100, and so it was an ideal candidate. When you said that, I thought, oh yeah, this is great. And it's not a new concept, from the sense that we've been messing around with devices that you could take in your vehicle to use as hard drives, but it really, from your first review, it seems like this really is actually fairly workable. I mean, it works fairly well. You could fire it up in the car and have the kids stream it. And we're going to hear back from you after Thanksgiving, right?
Yep.
With kind of a report.
Yeah, I did get it. I did have one stream going in the car and a kid watching a movie off one, and it works. I definitely want to keep working with it and playing with it more, because sometimes, as you know, you try something for a while and you think, oh, this is really great, but then as you use it more, you discover the flaws and the problems.
Mm-hmm. But
so far I'm happy, and I think $90 is a really good price point for this. I don't need a terabyte. The 500 gigs is so much more than all my devices together. So
right.
I think so far I'm happy with it. They do make another step up. They call it the Wireless Plus or something, that has the ability, I think, to copy your data from the device back to the Seagate drive, which this does not do. So I'll look into that more before part 2 and find out, why would you pay more for this other Seagate wireless drive?
Yeah. No, very cool. I think you're onto something there. That sounds like a good family. Here's a question for you. So if you say you're driving to Des Moines and I somehow get behind you and I know you've got this thing turned on, would I see it? Say I got within 50 feet of you in the car. Could I be streaming? Because it doesn't sound like there's any security on it.
Well, you can. You can. I chose not to put a password on the
Okay.
wireless, but you could. And I thought I said somewhere that it played. It would play 150 feet of wireless. It's a 2.4 gigahertz signal, but yeah, that'd be a good thing to find out. Could you pull up next to someone who's broadcasting their media? That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
If you didn't put a password on, sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, that might work. It's if I remember when we used to do war driving where we'd go around and see who had open wireless ports, and you didn't ever do anything with it, but you kind of in the early days of Wi-Fi, you were like, oh, hey, I found somebody's internet, is wide
Yeah,
open.
right.
Could
What
that
do they call
happen
it,
now
war
on the
driving?
interstate? Very good. Well, good work, Nathaniel. If you want to see that, head out to theaverageguy.tv, and who knows where it's at in the stream of things. If it's after November 8th, 2013, if it's a while after that, you just go to the search upper right-hand corner and select GoFlex, and that'll probably get you there. Seagate GoFlex probably will pull that up for you, and you can take a peek at that review. And Nathaniel will work on one after Thanksgiving, maybe mid-December. We can get another post from you on the follow-up on that stuff on how it worked.
Yeah, I'll have to make sure it's done before Christmas, otherwise it's going to get put off.
All right, I'll remind you every 3 or 4 days. Hey, how's that post coming? Hey, how's that post coming? So, very good. Well, that's a good use of the Tech Scholarship Fund. And again, every time you go out to theaverageguy.tv/Amazon and purchase from there, we get a little bit of money. I turn that into these scholarship funds. And if you're interested in doing something like this, just contact me, podcast@theaverageguy.tv or jim@theaverageguy.tv. Both of those work. Let me know what you're thinking. We try to keep it around $100, but if it's, I'll go a little bit over if it's something really cool. If you'll put some time into it, test it, give me a post or two, and come on the show. We'd love to have you review that as well. So, Nathaniel, thanks for doing that.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Yeah, good. All right, let's dig in a little bit into Christian's Corner. And I know Christian's got some stuff he wants to update us on from Maryland. And so, Christian, what do you got for us on today's Christian's Corner?
That's a good question. So I'm gonna go back to cybersecurity and hijack. I think Rennie might have brought it up in our notes. The CryptoLocker.
No, that was me.
Oh, that was you. Okay,
Yeah.
well, I'm going to steal it from you. That seems to be pretty big. Seems to be pretty big in general in terms of the impact, and the people have seen it. I know everyone here at the University of Maryland, faculty and staff, have been put on notice about it. And also all NASA employees and contractors got a notification because it did infect some NASA systems. So, and NASA isn't the only one struggling with CryptoLocker, so it seems to be affecting a multitude of federal processes, and to be honest, it's pretty interesting because the way they craft the emails that spread it, it picks the top systems to mimic, like Intuit and PayPal and so forth, and for your average federal accountant who probably gets hundreds of email transactions per day on invoices and all this other stuff, their mind isn't really very trained to key in on subtle differences that might show you what the difference is between spam and not spam and what's being spoofed and what isn't. So I imagine most of the sources where the infection starts with financial services and management for most of the federal agencies, because they're just going through emails, they're clicking it really quick to see what they missed, and then before you know it, it's on their system. The price to unencrypt your files has also gone up from like $300 to $1,000 by the creators of the virus. So you're pretty much it's a pretty high ransom for most people. So and if you're in the if you're in the federal space, everything's automatically backed up. So the IT security team will walk by, take your hard drive away, put you in with a backup from last week, and that's the end of it. But it definitely has a big impact on well, not just managing security incidents and responses, but also for, home consumers who are falling prey to it. They're pretty much screwed. Especially because no matter how many times we can preach, there's always going to be those people who don't back up. So, and chances are, if they're not paying for backup systems, they're not going to want to pay a hacker $1,000 to unencrypt their files. So that's been a pretty high visibility cyber threat for the week. So I thought it was worth mentioning.
Do we know how it's spreading, Christian? How are people getting this?
It's email. So
Just email. Okay.
yeah, they craft some pretty clever emails that make it seem like it's coming from Intuit or PayPal or any kind of financial. I mean, I can read the somewhere here. Wait 2 seconds. Here we go. Spear phishing emails are the primary method CryptoLocker is using to gain access. These sophisticated and convincing emails look like communications from the payroll department or other legitimate companies such as UPS, DHS, and FedEx. Subject line keywords reported by victims include payroll received by Intuit, ADP run payroll processed alert, payroll manager payroll invoice, payroll processed alert annual form, so on and so forth. So, tracking numbers and financial paperwork are the two quickest things that people look at and open up to see what's going on. So it can be.
Finance guys are not always, I hate to say this, they're not always the most tech savvy either. They're good at accounting, they're really good at that kind of stuff, but they're good at, the number crunching, but they're not always thinking about, they're quickly rolling through that stuff. And it's just a great, attack, what do they say that? A great attack
social
target.
engineering.
Yeah, right. They're used to just moving through those things very, very quickly.
Well, I think that all the time. If I get FedEx emails or UPS, and I see FedEx and I see click this tracking link, which is the same format every time. We're all trained. We know what tracking numbers and links look like. Just clicking on that, just to see if you're expecting stuff coming in every day, and I can see not getting that frame of mind of like, wait a minute, am I expecting a package?
Yeah, you really got to think through that. And we order stuff all the time online, so I don't even give it a second thought. It's like, oh, cool, wait a minute, I don't have a package coming, kind of deal. Lopta says attack surface. That's the word I was looking for out there, attack surface. It makes it a nice, easy kill. Christian, I did not know they had moved from 300 to 1,000.
Yeah, I heard that from someone. I don't have confirmed info on that, but that was the latest I'd heard. And it would also appear that it only gives you 72 to 100 hour countdown to get payment. So before
it's bad. Let me do mention on this. So we talked a little bit about this on Home Server Show over at homeservershow.com. I think in their last episode, and Malwarebytes, which is an antivirus that I highly recommend. I use the free version. For a long time, I was just installing the free version on all my friends' computers when they brought them in. I'm like, okay, I've put this here. If you think you've done anything wrong, you update and execute this like it's immediately, right? And it was always my kind of fail-safe backup. Well, now Malwarebytes, the Pro version has been anywhere between $15 and $25, and actually on Amazon right now, you can go and get the download version for $20, and it's a lifetime, so you'll never pay another cent to them again. And they actually have a defense against this. So if you're running it, it starts to execute. Malwarebytes will stop that from executing before it even starts. So that is something. If you're concerned about that, if you've got kids that are constant, I don't think kids are the target on this, to be honest with you. But if you're worried about it at all, you've got a business and you don't have anything backed up, and you're thinking, oh my God, I could not afford that right now, you might want to spend $20 per PC and get that thing locked down.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but if you're spending $20, why don't you buy some backup software at the same time?
There you go. Yeah, for sure. Well, and think about it, Nathaniel. I mean, for $60, you could have that thing backed up to Crashplan, right?
Well, maybe it's like the will. Yeah, we've been meaning to do that. We just haven't gotten to it yet. it's important, but
You don't want to map
See,
your backup drive either to your PC because apparently once the infection is in there, it'll go looking for map drives as well. So you
yeah,
want to
but
watch that.
what surprises me is that, I mean, I guess it's just one thing or the other. You just either want, ransom for financial compensation, but I'm surprised that a version of this hasn't surfaced that involves, once it gets on there, it just starts pulling your files up to a remote server. And, if it's getting into government agencies, who knows what files they're getting back that are sensitive or could do damage otherwise. So because it's the same type of technology from that point. It's just, well, do you choose to encrypt everything on the hard drive, or do you choose to send a remote uplink back to some who knows IP address and start siphoning files from any number of computers that get infected? So I'm surprised we haven't seen stuff like that.
Christian, if you're already encrypted, though, so say your files already, all our files on my computer at work are encrypted already.
Well,
So,
it depends. How are they encrypted?
I couldn't tell you. I don't know if we're
Because if
using
you're logged
no,
on to the
PGP.
yeah, but okay, so if you're logged into the operating system, you log in with your Windows password or whatever.
Yep. No, you're right. Those are
Um,
unencrypted then at that point because I'm logged in as
right,
me when it executes. Yeah.
right.
Okay.
So the virus would be logged in as you at that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
I mean, we have all the same thing. For example, all of the laptops that we use are DAR encrypted, meaning that if it's sleeping, hibernate off, the entire hard drive is in an encrypted state, so you can't even boot anything off the computer, yet alone access the files on the hard drive, even if they're removed, if the laptop gets lost or stolen. But once you're logged in and fired up and stuff, and you're logged in as that user, you're seeing unencrypted versions of those files. So
right, that's the way I understand it too.
The limitation of the map network drives is only those items that show up in my computer, right? So if you've got network shares, like my Windows Home Server is there as a network, it's under the network icon. It's not going to go grab that, right?
That's what I've heard. Is it's only letter
same
mapped
here.
drives, and we've actually seen that in my environment where a letter map drive, and I don't know that it was the CryptoLocker because I never saw the computer that infected it, but I saw the result of it.
Okay.
So I know that it works on mapped letter drives that you have
Okay.
right access to.
So you should probably take a look. I mean, as I'm looking at mine right now, I use Voila, which automatically maps. I don't really use them. There's nothing there, but we've talked about them. They're a cloud-based software, sync folder. They create a drive for you automatically. So anything in Voila would get infected. I have a map drive to my Drobo at this point, so the Drobo would get whacked if anything on the Drobo would get pulled up. But those are my only two that are there. The other ones, so Crashplan would not be affected in this case unless it sat for 24 hours and then went like this PC was being backed up. I back up the Windows Home Server to Crashplan, not my local PC. So all the files go to the home server first and they get backed up by Crashplan. But say that the home server got infected, I would not have much time to catch that before those infected files would get moved up, except Crashplan has versioning, right? So I could roll that back to a version before it was encrypted.
Yeah. So the versioning would save you.
Yeah.
A corrupt file would get backed up and it would replace a previous version. And earlier on, I heard that the virus you could remedy yourself by doing the VSS versioning that's built into Windows if you've enabled that ahead of time. But now I think it has changed and iterated where it corrupts the VSS behind it, so Windows versioning would not help you.
Okay, this is serious stuff. I mean, viruses have always kind of been funny, ha 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 ha. Not really doing much. We cleaned them up and we were done. This is. I mean, you could lose a lot and never get it back. I mean, it's like a crash, right? At that point, you have to be ready. If it hits, you might as well, unless you're going to pay $1,000, you got to treat it like a crash computer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say we're definitely starting to enter a different era of more sophisticated viruses. I think we were at a slow point for a little bit there where, they had played a pretty standard set of tricks in the card books and the antivirus software had caught up for a little bit there, for a little while. I would say back in, yeah, it's really hard to say when, maybe 2010 it seemed to have slowed up a little bit, and then you start getting these hacker groups together, lulzsec, anonymous, start to see this stuff roll up, and it's getting more sophisticated. Um, and your traditional heuristic-based virus definition databases aren't going to catch them all at this stage. So it's going to be interesting to see how the defensive measures start to have to compensate to catch up with, because it definitely seems like we're having more losses than wins at this point, at least for this past couple of years in terms of successful virus exploits on the internet.
Yeah, one of the things, just a reminder that it cleans off very easy, right? So once you have it, the antivirus software can remove it the first time,
Sure.
but it's already infected. I mean, it's
Yeah.
already locked up the files at that
Yep.
point. And I just happen to run I think I mentioned that. I run Malwarebytes on my home server, so if it happened to get there, now I never check email on my home server, so that's a nice, and I don't have any map drives, so the home server is isolated from the network in that case, that it's not getting those, and it can't be infected from a file that's moved there. If one of the kids got it and moved a file there, it wouldn't infect it. Although my kids don't use the home server, which just drives me nuts. But anyways, so Malwarebytes, if I did get it on my home server, would stop it there before it infects the computer. So you can stop it. There are some ways to stop it before it actually infects it.
Yeah.
All right. Any other thoughts on that, guys? It's kind of a serious moment there, but there's some serious stuff out there, and you wouldn't hate to get all your pictures. I mean, what are your on Home Server Show Wednesday? A third of the people would only pay $300 to have the average American, or the average in this survey, would only pay $300 to have their stuff backed up, but they'd pay $1,200 to have it recovered.
To get it back,
yeah, and you think, okay, there's a miss there in the sense that it's much cheaper to back it up than it is to pay to have it recovered.
I said during the show the other day that I think there's still a perception among the general population that backing up is too time-consuming, too hard, and you forget, and when you want the stuff back, it's too hard. You don't know where you put it, or how do you get it back. It's just a hassle of people just, it used to be pretty bad having to, back things up, but it's just so easy these days, and, you can do it right on a computer, with a RAID 1 or something like that. I mean,
yeah. Rennie, let's go around the
not
horn.
that would help you.
let's go around the horn real quick. And I've mentioned I have a Windows home server, and I use that to back up to Crashplan. That's the kind of the way I make sure I don't back up necessarily the local PCs. I make sure everything gets on the home server and then it's backed up to Crashplan. Rennie, in a quick nutshell, what's your backup strategy?
Very similar to that. I mean, I back up every PC, of which there's 4 of them in the house, twice a day. Back up the server backs up twice a day, and all the mission critical stuff like pictures and documents are backed up to Crashplan.
Okay, so you're using Crashplan. Nathaniel, what about you? What's your strategy?
Crashplan, and I do use Time Machine, but it doesn't really. I've never had to do any restore from it, so pretty much Crashplan.
Go into a server, or are you just crash planning each of the PCs?
Each device goes to, well, there's some mixing matching between local peers, friends, and their Crashplan cloud, but they're all independently going up. It's not like I centralize on the home server and then that backs up like you're doing.
Okay, yeah, so a more distributed model.
Yeah.
And we always forget you used to work for them, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They have a new product called SharePlan now.
Say that again, Rennie.
What would Nathaniel know about it?
It changes fast.
Yeah,
You
it's been a
lose
while.
that sort of intensity very quickly. But
It's been a while. You said they have a new plan? Sorry.
yeah, they have a new product called SharePlan that's come out, and it's in version 1, but it's basically the same engine, the same technology, but more of a Dropbox for enterprise focus. So all the files will be encrypted the same way and backed up the same way in the same engine. So you could run Crashplan and SharePlan on the same machine, but you have that ad hoc sharing and synchronization piece as well as the corporate control, so you could suck it back off the computer.
Okay. And Christian, what's your guys in a nutshell?
Yeah, we pretty much use 2012 essentials for the PC backups, and then we replicate our user shares across several different servers so that we have two 490 Media Smarts, which they synchronize with, I think we're using SyncToy to basically make complete synced shares of all of our user files. And then the idea is that if a computer goes dead, you back up off the home server, and if the home server goes dead, then you sync back over from the secondary server and then re-back up all your PCs.
It's a little more complicated.
Yeah.
That's good though. I mean, we've run the gamut. I mean, we all do it differently, I think, and run the gamut of how we do that. But I think the most important thing is, and I think November 3rd was National Backup Day, or somebody declared that as National Backup Day or whatever, but might be a good idea during the holiday season, as it's here, at least here in the United States, as we head into Thanksgiving and then into Christmas. Hopefully you'll get a little time off from work, and you might want to spend a little time on your network or your PCs at home, just making sure everything that's backed up. Let's talk a little bit, speaking about backup and security, that's a good segue into Lastpass. I know Lastpass has come out with a version 3. Rennie, I think that was you that threw that in the notes. Is that something you're using? First of all, was that you that threw that in the notes?
I think Nathaniel and myself both put it in there.
Talk a little bit about that.
Well, not much to say really. They've just sort of changed the interface a bit. It looks very sort of Chromey now, I guess. A very simple sort of layout and font style and that sort of thing. But in terms of new features, there is this, you can share your locker, if you like, for certain sites with family or friends or whatever it might be. So I think that's relatively new. There's a whole bunch of different levers and tools you can use now as well that I haven't delved into in any way, shape or form. But so just an update comes through automatically. You don't have to do anything about it, and you're good to go.
So I got a question. Have you tried the family share folder yet, Rennie?
No, because I don't want to share it with anybody. Because once you do, you're in strife. Really?
Well, I have a need for it. I tried it last night on their site, and I got to go watch some video or read about how you're supposed to do it, because it is. I get the concept, but moving your sites into this shared folder was a pain. I must be doing it wrong, because it's not going to work for me.
I'll have to admit too, we did a year back or so. We had Amber on from Lastpass, and we talked. We kind of went through it, and I got a subscription to it, and I was trying to use it, and I've really had a hard time. I don't know why, making it work simply for me across all my PCs. So my problem is I go to work and I can't install it on my PC at work.
Oh.
I'm on that PC more than anything, probably more. Well, it'd be a toss-up. I spend quite a bit of time here at the desk in the evenings, but at least let's just say half of the time I'm on my work computer, and I got to go to the browser, and I got to cut and paste, and and then I did install it on another computer, and it worked in IE, but it didn't work in Chrome on that computer, and it was collecting multiple. So like with Dropbox, every time I went to a different URL to log into Dropbox, and by the way, there's like 3 or 4 or 5 different URLs that allow you to log in. It said, hey, do you want to save it for this URL? And I'd be like, yeah, sure, that's great. I'd save it. Well, then you go back to your repository, and there'd be 5 links there, all for Dropbox, right? And I'm like, oh, okay, which one is the right one? And it wasn't, for me, it just wasn't as easy as I thought it was going to be. There's that sales pitch of, hey, this is the last password you have to remember. Not so much for me, in that way. It just wasn't as easy as I thought it was supposed to be.
Yeah, I've been trying to get my wife to use it because she can never remember passwords. And she was looking for one the other day, and I said, look, I'm sick of this. We're going to put this on Lastpass. What is your password? What is your username? And, of course, okay, I said, all you do now is just go to the site, and it'll log in automatically, and you're good to go. Well, within 2 days, she was trying to access that account at work, or that website at work, couldn't remember what the username and password were, so reset it, and she comes back here the next day to log in. Of course, it takes her to her old password, and this goes on and on and on, so she's just had enough of it.
Yeah, so her experience is going to be like, well, I don't want to use this tool. It's making it harder.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Crazy as it sounds.
I'm surprised, Jim, that's disappointing you can't install it at work, because that's a huge benefit to be able to use it at work. And
I know.
They used to have a portable version you could run off a USB drive, but you'd probably still be copy and pasting, and it would just slow you down. So I had to understand that.
And they've shut off USB ports on most of our.
Well.
They don't really work for that. So it's we went a direction with our security that was kind of ultra secure, and we had some we created an approved software list, and LastPass did not make the approved software list on that, and I'm okay with that. That's the decision our security guys made, and I'm okay with it. But it did, again, I tried to do this across then, and at work, I access the same things at work that I access at home in a lot of cases from a website perspective, so it just never really panned out for me. So Christian, I know you've got a complex password just to begin with in all the things that you do, but have you tried using those password managers?
I mean, I have been using RoboForm pretty regularly, but I still rely on my own. I never save my master password anywhere, which is what would get you into RoboForm in the first place.
Right.
And pretty much, I only use it for by and large, the sites that get saved to RoboForm are not like mission critical sites for me. So I know all the passwords to stuff that I wouldn't want to have compromised. But if someone compromises my, I don't know, a Spotify account or something like that, it wouldn't be the end of the world. So
yeah, you're pretty smart about the way you pick your passwords, and you have a plan and a purpose behind the passwords you use, and so you've got this kind of, and it works in your head. So you have LastPass in your head.
Yeah,
it's basically the way it works. Yeah.
So I use the password generator within LastPass. I mean, you can set it to as many characters, as many variables as you want, and just let it go crazy. And you're never going to remember the password if you go to a device without LastPass on it. You've had it, basically. But
well, that's why you put it on your phone. You pay to get the mobile version, and you can look it up.
Yeah, I've got it on an iPad. I haven't got it on my phone. But
but Christian, if you're keeping most of these or many of these in your head, is it and you explained it before, but is it a concoction that you use, or is it something else? Because I look at my LastPass vault, I probably got 400 sites listed in there. And a lot of them are redundant, where it's the same Active Directory password for all these different sites because they use the same authentication, but that's a lot to keep track of. I don't know how I could go to not using a password manager.
Yeah, so a password manager helps when you're in a hurry with stuff, and that's where it's been kind of my fallback when I don't feel like adding it to my memory bank. But for the most part, if you, my plan, and you can do whatever makes you happy if you want to try this, but my plan has always been memorize a 128-bit router key, which has 26 unique characters, right? So you get this full password, and then you just, essentially assign sets of variations to each segment of that 26 character string. And so what you do is you pick a base of maybe about 8 or 10 starting from wherever you are within that 26, right? And then whatever website you're at or you're looking on, you look for some unique feature that's on every website that you can imagine logging into that you're going to append to that unique starting, we'll call it a hash, so starting hash. So for example, if I go to a website and I notice the most prominent product name or the company name or the manufacturer or just some site specific thing that I know, oh yeah, that's the first thing that pops to my head when I think about that website. Then I append that with what I call an appending character. So you define an appending character in your own password generation, and then you have whatever your initial hash is from your master key, plus your appending character sequence, plus whatever it is that specifically pops out to you about that site. And the idea is you pick something that pops so crazily that you're not. It's somewhat ununique because several people could identify. So you could identify something as unique that someone else would, but the idea is that no one else is going to have your own hash or your own appending signature. And so the combination of those three items can generate passwords for you anywhere from I would say 8 to 14 characters on average for the ones I use, and you rack up 20, 30 passwords in one block in your 26 sequence, and then you just go on to the next block. And I normally use 2 or 3 different appender switches, so I have 3 different ways in which I could append something specific about the site to any of the hashes that I choose. And if you forget a password, all you have to do is start from the top of your head and go through each block and try all your appenders. And really the only flaw in the logic is that if you for whatever reason don't see or don't remember what it was that pops about that website for you, then you're kind of at a dead end there. But it limits you in scope. So, and
Christian,
like I said, I pick super obvious stuff, so you can't run into that.
I've had you explain that to me before. Yeah, your explanation is enough that I'll never crack your passwords. But it works for you, right?
But what he's doing, however complicated, he's creating unique passwords per site still, and he has a formula, and you're right. We're never going to guess or figure out or do that. So I'm curious if anybody has listened to or read about the Adobe breach, where there millions and millions and hundreds of millions of records have been exposed, and included the password hints in clear text that people put for their Adobe accounts. Has anybody else been looking at that?
No, I heard it happen, but I didn't realize that the hints were coming out. And
I did check to see if I was compromised, but I wasn't. So
yeah, and I would add to that. I mean,
Just
part of my security scheme is that, so in those initial 8 to 10 whatever blocks that I use, I assign priority sensitivity to each one of those. So sites that I'm more worried about, maybe this website isn't as secure as some, for example, I know PayPal is a lot more secure than I don't know, logging into the forms at Engadget. And I don't know why I picked Engadget, but just some online form database, right? That's using an open source form software that any hacker can go read the source code for and find a new exploit, right? So that way, if my password does get exposed in one of those breaches, based on what tier breach it is, the idea is that your breaches are more likely to happen in the hash that you picked and assigned a lowest priority to, so that if someone hacks into my form account, I'm not going to be too worried, because the only other stuff they're going to get into with that hash is my Spotify account and my TuneIn account, right? but they're not going to be able to get into my bank account because that's in a different priority code, right? So that's kind of another added layer of security with doing this method.
Well, I just looked at that site, and actually my email address was one of those that was on the list.
Well, 38 million is a pretty good chance.
Yeah, yeah. And I haven't used Adobe in a long time. I wouldn't even know where to go to sign in for them.
Yeah,
Just
so both
Adobe.
LastPass and Sophos have a post about it,
Yeah,
and the Sophos one is really interesting because it talks about what they did wrong, and it shows you, what the clear text looks like in the popular passwords, like ABC123.
right. Now they did come back and tell me I did not have a hint.
Oh, that's good.
When I clicked on that, it said you didn't have a hint. So, not that that my hints actually don't mean anything. When I do put a hint, doesn't mean anything. So, I like Christian have some set of standard passwords that I use with some variety of some things that work. And so I put it. It's almost nonsense when I put it in there on the hint that it gives me a clue to what that variation is, but it doesn't mean anything, right? I mean, it doesn't. You can't directly take it and get the password out of it. So it's even if it was out there and somebody had it, they're not me, so it doesn't get much. Doesn't give them much.
So this hint here is the password is password.
Oops. And where did you
Is
see
that a
that?
router?
It's on the Sophos
Okay.
site. They list some of here's the crypto, or here's the Adobe password data, which equals this password hint, like 1 + 6.
Nice. Jeez.
It's kind of interesting social information of like what people are thinking and how they choose it, and why did over 3,000 people choose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 as their password and things like that.
Well, interesting. So did the passwords get passed in the clear as well?
From my understanding, the passwords are not clear, but poorly encrypted.
Okay.
Which means that they'll be able to, I'm guessing, reverse engineer and throw them against rainbow tables, and they're looking for patterns and stuff.
Interesting. All right. Well, let's see. It's making me do a password reset at this point.
Yeah.
So let me go through that process here real quick and see
Share
what
your screen there,
it
Jim.
does. Nicely said. Required. Okay, to protect this security account, you must reset your password. Please check your inbox. Oh, so I need to go back to my inbox. I'm sure they've sent me something saying, please go to this link. There we go. So Adobe sends you an email that says, click this link to reset your password. And then I get that. So it's a pretty typical process then to reset your password. They send you an email with a link. You go in, change your password, which I just did right now. And the password is reset. Although I don't know I guess I don't know what them having my Adobe password would do much, but I guess it would get in there, maybe social engineering or something along those lines.
Well, I think one of the takeaways from Adobe getting hacked in this sense is that even a huge company that's in technology screwed up.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm going to trust Amazon and Google and those who have a huge vested interest in the security of their users' accounts and data. But this is not the first time that a big company's been, compromised like this. And what it showed, the ability to get this data out, the only reason it's remarkable and scary is because how poorly the data was kept by the company in the first place. So Sony, LinkedIn, Last.fm, eHarmony, all those, they all got hacked, which is unfortunate. But then as they analyze the hack, they discover how poorly the passwords and usernames and data was encrypted so that it could be reverse engineered and be problematic. If it was all done correctly, a dump of the user database would prove nothing or would provide no value. Am I right, Christian, or am I missing a piece?
Yeah, re-say the last part.
My point is, if the companies were encrypting and protecting their users' data, usernames, passwords, password hints, credit card stuff. If some hacker group was able to get a dump of that data, it would be encrypted in such a way that it would provide them no value.
Right. I mean, if it's done right, which
Right.
is
And so in my recollection of hearing of these breaches and dumps, it almost always comes out, if maybe I'm wrong, that the credit card data was not compromised. So that tells me that they have a way to secure credit card data appropriately and strongly, but they're not applying those same principles to the user data, the personally identifiable information. And so that there's a disconnect there. So, and it's probably commerce driven, of you have to protect credit card data in this manner, but they don't have the same rules applied perhaps to personally identifiable information and user account data.
yeah. No, and it's interesting that you say that too, because I wonder if that's just pressure from the financial sector to enforce higher standards when processing credit card payments, or if that's just developers' prerogative within the company itself.
I think it has to be the financial sector forcing them. You cannot store this data, or you can only store it this way. That's my
Or you can only
suspicion.
process a payment with, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know for sure. That's just my suspicion. But
Yeah.
if I remember, all these breaches are like, don't worry, your credit card information wasn't compromised.
I
Well,
think one thing that surprises me is how many sites we have that aren't SSL encrypted that probably should be. And you wonder, you think, I honestly think that a lot more websites on the internet would be SSL encrypted if you didn't have to pay to get a certificate, and the ICANN certificate authority, basically when you get your domain for your $10 a year, it comes with a SSL certificate, and that's the end of it. And ICANN controls the validation of signatures for your certificate and your key. And if it just came default that all domains ran encrypted traffic unless otherwise specified, the default would be encrypted channels instead of non-encrypted. And that would close a lot of the smaller gaps. But for stuff like this, you're looking at database issues, you're looking at poorly written code, cross-site scripts. It's interesting. I was talking to someone at work, and talking about all these breaches, and he said, all of this is just so silly because, I could build anyone in the world a secure system that they couldn't steal data off of, that they couldn't breach. And the way you do that is by, and again, I'm quoting him, and the way you do that is by creating multi-layered systems where, if they break through the top one or two layers, they still don't get anything, because it's not until you hit layer 6 that you actually get to the, XYZ server. So if your database server is sitting behind 3 firewalls and 2 proxy servers, and they manage to break through the first firewall, well, great. Now they have access to try and break into the next 3 layers in the proxy server. And if your database server never opens its port to accept connections from any other IP address than localhost, then that means the only thing that ever gets in your database to do any kind of attempts is the web server. Then you get to your web server layer. Well, guess what? What should be the only thing that, and that's where the vulnerabilities start, is you have a web server where people test for flaws and loops in your code, where they can send executable down that layer of 4 or 5 layers and get stuff back out. So the two major things that we could do better is creating more multi-layered systems, which I agree with. But the part where I disagree with that statement that he made is that multi-layer still doesn't stop bad software development and engineering principles. And just to give you an example, we had a tech talk here that the board sponsored for ACES that we put together by Craig Hefner, who there was a recent article on BBC News that about him. He works at Tactical Solutions, which is a big cybersecurity. It's a pretty big. Actually, it's a small business, but in any event, they're offensive cybersecurity, and they do a lot of government contracts for the NSA and so forth. And he did a really fantastic demonstration on hacking D-Link routers. And I mean, even for the people who weren't technical in the room, he showed how he went on a D-Link's website, downloaded a firmware image for fun, opened it up, found a backdoor that someone poorly programmed into the system, was able to reverse engineer, or was able to just reverse figure out what was calling that backdoor, then was able to discover by tracing back through the poorly written code that if he set the user agent in his browser to that weird string that he found in the firmware, it automatically bypassed the username and password login and sent you right to the admin page without even having to guess any admin login stuff. And that's bad enough when you get into someone's router administrative page, but from there he was able to find places in the embedded Linux kernel where he could overflow the stack trace and start inserting his own executable code into that, so that he could start actually executing machine instruction on the network that router existed, which is a much more serious problem. And the only reason that happened was because D-Link has poor developers, and that's clear when you see that a developer wrote a backdoor in that completely ignores the security schema put in place. And you ask why they did that, and think of some of the context, right? D-Link firmware is generally, or D-Link routers are generally on the little lower end of the price range, so they're not as robust as some of your higher end Netgear and so forth. And so what happens is all these router companies start with the same, vanilla flavor of Linux embedded technologies, and then write in their own customized code and modules, and then package it out for whatever that particular hardware chipset and platform is. And so in this case, what he concluded is he didn't think it was malicious. The developer didn't purposely intend to do it so that he had a backdoor into these systems. The idea was that there's other services that run on that router, for example, dynamic DNS and NS lookup and so forth. And those are executables that are inside the firmware but are separate from where the variables are that the router stores for router information, right? So they said, well, if the user decides to change their login information to the router, then dynamic DNS and all these other applications are going to stop working because they won't have the new login info. So we'll just write a separate backdoor in that these EXEs can just directly go through because they need to be able to set those values in the data. Well, that's really great when if in fact no one ever could get into that embedded file system and figure that out. But as you can see, it wasn't very hard for him to reverse engineer that with some pretty standard tools in the world of reverse engineering. So it just goes to show you that really two biggest reasons why cybersecurity grows so much is because of poor software engineering principles and poor architecture of putting in multi-layer systems, and those two things seem to be biting many people repeatedly. And in their defense, yeah, these systems are getting more complicated and a lot more data is being handled, and you have to assess the time it takes to implement advanced security versus when people actually want stuff, right? But as a whole, I think there needs to be a little bit of a better balance because, like I said, we're definitely starting to cross more into the lose more than win more in cybersecurity, as a general statement.
Well, another topic brought to you by the average tech guy, and we just flew over some people's heads. I hope you didn't swerve off the road while you were driving or such in that, but very good. No, there's some important things in there, and Christian's on the forefront of that. I think we might just create our own security show for Christian in the future where we get to talk about that. So some good stuff. As I was going through this, I realized, I put this in chat, every time we have these discussions, I have this immediate urge to go change all my passwords everywhere, right? It's just like, I'm going to change my passwords starting tomorrow. And that's why the last time I went on to LastPass was because I had that urge. I thought, okay, I need a place where I can track them all that's secure to get that done. And I got into that and then had problems, and then I never really did change anything. So interesting enough, guys, we're coming up on the last bits of our time. Rennie, I know you had thrown, I think this was you had thrown a kind of a tool in there. This is kind of interesting because I hadn't seen something like this. If you're moving data in between your Google Drive and your Dropbox and Box and all those cloud, and I shouldn't say all of them, but talk a little bit about Mover.io.
Yeah, I came across this not too long ago. I think it was on the last time I was on the on this podcast. I put the question out in the post show if anyone had heard of an app that you could actually, move stuff between cloud service providers without having to download it to your network or download it to your PC and then upload it again, which can be a bit tedious if A, you're like me, you've got quotas, and B, you've got a really slow internet connection. So, and it was only like a couple of days after I raised that question that I started having a look at Mover. And that used to cost straight off the bat, so I never really went there. But in doing a bit of research for this show, I thought, I might, go back because it's an interesting concept. Now they give you 10 gigabits of transfer for free, which is roughly $10 in value. So I gave it a go. It supports. What is it? I think 22 different cloud service providers.
22, Dropbox, Box, Google Drive.
Yeah, all the regular ones are there.
Box, yeah, I see a lot of them in there.
What's the Microsoft one? Sky, what do they call it? Yeah, so
I wish they had the list.
Crashplan's not there.
Yeah, I wish they had the list in English and not in cloud service icons. Yeah, because some of them you're trying to figure out. Sugar Sync is in there, and or at least
Amazon.
What's the dolphin supposed to be? I mean, yeah, they just got logos with no information on it.
I don't know. There's some in there that are fairly obscure that you're like, well, at least highlight them when I hover over them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, I gotta read this. It's for moving a one-time move. Like I'm at Dropbox and I hate it. I want to move everything to SugarSync, or is it like a synchronization tool that keeps them the same?
It's basically just a mover. I don't think it syncs as yet. That's a work in progress. I think some sites you can sync, but not all of them. But I mean, there was this huge land grab we all went through in the last 12 months where, every week and there'd be a new cloud service provider saying, here, have 15, here, have 20, gigabytes of free data. And of course, we were all madly putting our foot on, space before the offer disappears. And, upload some stuff. And then after a while, you start to think, well, gee, I wonder where I put all that, So you go hunting back through all your various cloud storage providers, and you find, oh, that's where I stuck it. Why don't I consolidate all this stuff on SkyDrive, because that's what I like to use for sharing stuff with family and friends. I use Dropbox for work because everyone at work understands Dropbox. And then I use Crashplan for, just in my entire backup sort of thing. So, yeah, I tried transferring just my photo roll off my camera. It was about 130 images that were being uploaded to Dropbox, and I thought, well, I'll stick those on SkyDrive instead. And it took a couple of minutes, basically, and the whole lot got transferred over, and never hit my network, nothing to do with me. And they're very big on security. As I said, you get 10 gig for nothing. I certainly haven't got that much data in the cloud, so it suits me perfectly if I want to go consolidate all the stuff I've stuck up there over the past 12 months in various, places that I never go. I've even got an old Amazon S3 account, for God's sake, I found the other day, which I'm paying like 3 cents a month for or something. So that's going away. But yeah, anyway, it's just
Yeah.
I thought it was a great little tool.
Yeah, it looks like
Or
incremental
service, I
transfers.
should say.
Looks like you can schedule transfers if you want to do that. Moving archives and logs. You mentioned security, AES 256. But it does look
Yeah,
like
they're big
move
on
right.
security.
Download out. So you do it all through an application. You download the app to your desktop, and then you can move these files around, and they never
It's
actually hit
it's just a
your
website.
desktop.
It's just a website.
It's just through the site. Okay.
Yeah.
So that sounds like a good service if you have bandwidth caps and bandwidth restriction, and say you've gotten your camera roll up to Dropbox, but now you want to put it in SkyDrive. So instead of downloading it all, then re-uploading it and using double your bandwidth, in theory, would this service move it in the cloud from Dropbox to SkyDrive, and then you wouldn't have any bandwidth costs?
Exactly right. That's why I particularly fell in love with it. Yeah.
Right, now I'm getting it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that makes sense, especially as we have phones. Like my Windows phone here moves stuff up to SkyDrive, but my Android phone moves stuff, and I could set it differently, but I kind of go with the default. It moves it to Google Plus,
Yeah.
and so I could move that when I want to consolidate. I could move those files.
Anyway, it's worth checking out. It costs nothing, and might come in handy for some people.
10 gig per month, is that the way it works out?
I think it's just 10 gig full stop.
Okay, so 10 gig lifetime, and then after that you're paying for the moves.
Yeah.
All right.
But
Very cool.
I mean, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
Mike Howard might have that much up there, but
Yeah.
not too many other people.
Yeah, 10 gigs is quite a bit. Maybe not with movies, but it would move some pictures. It would move a few pictures. Although, I think I've got 30 gig of pictures at this point. Now that I've got one, I'm just shooting pictures with my phone everywhere because it's so easy. But yeah, some good stuff. All right, look into that. Mover, it's real easy. Mover.io. Have a peek at that, and especially if you've got a business, if you got a business reason around it, or like Rennie, like you said, bandwidth caps get in the way. That never hits your ISP. It just goes right through their servers, and they take care of it. So pretty cool. All right, guys, let's bring this in for a landing. I got a couple announcements. We'll stay around for the post show here, but a couple things to let you know in advance. It is Black Friday is almost upon us here in the United States or around the world. I think most countries around the world have adopted the Black Friday after Thanksgiving. It's a crazy time as well, especially here in the U.S., and most of our listeners are here in the U.S. We get a few from Australia, a few from New Zealand, a few from Canada, a few from the U.K., and you're welcome to participate in our Black Friday as well if you'd like to. But Kevin Schoonover, who's the master of all deals, right? This is a guy, if you need a deal, Kevin Schoonover's the guy to do it. And he's kind of thrown down a little bit of a challenge. One is, during the month of November, if you post an Amazon deal at theaverageguy.tv/Facebook, that's our Facebook group, and join that if you're not out there already. If you post a deal out there, you get 4 deals a month. You can post up to 4, and if your deal sells the most during it, of course, all that money goes to the Tech Scholarship Fund. You get first in line to take advantage of the Tech Scholarship Fund. So give that a try. We're just doing this for fun, guys. We're just kind of goofing around, all right? So it was just one way I could think of to kind of just incent you to go out there and find some deals on Amazon. Christmas is coming up. If you see a good Amazon deal, or honestly any deal at all, head out to the Facebook page, post that during the holiday season. We're all buying stuff for Christmas anyway, so get that out there. Kevin just recently put a post at theaverageguy.tv as well that has Black Friday deals in it. So if you go to the site, search for Black Friday, you'll see the post. If you just put that deal in the comments, he will pull it out and put it in the post. And we kind of have this collective of Black Friday deals or whatever. It doesn't have to be on Black Friday. It can be any deal that's coming up during the Christmas time. If you've got some kind of good deal, he'd like to aggregate it for you. And who wouldn't want to save a few bucks during Christmas time? So a couple different ways to do it. Head out to our Facebook group, shop through Amazon, or go out to theaverageguy.tv and post that in the comments on the page, and get your name aggregated in there as well, and help the average guy save a few bucks during Christmas. We could all want to buy more, right? We just want to buy more crap. Well, Christian, you don't, but we all want to buy more crap for our kids, right? So Christian just wants to buy more crap for himself. in that. And a reminder then again, theaverageguy.tv/Amazon gets you to the site. We got all kinds of ways now to reach out and listen to the site if you haven't, or listen to the podcast if you haven't been out in a while. It's a good time to remind you that Home Tech is also on Spreaker. If you're looking for an audio-only version, maybe you're sensitive to your bandwidth caps and you want to get an easy way to stream that to your phone or whatever each week, you can head out to Spreaker.com. And actually, through Spreaker, we're also featured here in the U.S. on iHeartRadio. So if you are a listener to iHeartRadio, search Home Tech. They're available out there as well. Just head out to theaverageguy.tv/Spreaker. Actually, if you could do me a favor, this would be great. All right, so if you've made it to this part of the show, you're the most engaged 1% of all that we do. Head out to theaverageguy.tv/Spreaker. Create an account real fast. And then just follow me there. The more followers we get, the more exposure we get on Spreaker. And actually, Spreaker is taking off as along with Stitcher as one of those site aggregators that's doing real well. If you haven't listened to us on Stitcher, you could do the same thing. Head out there, create an account, follow us on Stitcher. The more follows we get, the better we do in search rankings and those kinds of things. I really never ask for you guys to do that, but maybe for this one podcast, you could head out there and get those and just follow us. You won't get a lot of spam. You'll see when I add stuff to Spreaker and stuff like that. But I'll give that a try if you're interested. And we like to say when you do that, it's education for your ears. You can also find the podcast, like I mentioned, over on Stitcher, Podomatic, Audioboom. We're in iTunes. We're on the Xbox Marketplace or wherever podcasts are found, just about anywhere. If you find a place we're not at, let me know, and I'd love to get it there. And while you're out there, give us a review, a like, a +1, all those other things that help us out, again, to get that done. You can view and subscribe to the show on YouTube if you haven't done that yet, theaverageguy.tv/YouTube, where you can catch the show each week live like we're doing tonight, usually on Thursday nights. Tonight we're on Friday. And thanks for coming out on Friday, a few of you, and listening to us tonight. You can head out to theaverageguy.tv/live. And don't forget, we have groups on Facebook, like I mentioned before, theaverageguy.tv/Facebook, and Google+, theaverageguy.tv/Google. And we appreciate you coming out and using the Amazon link when you are purchasing. Rennie, Nathaniel, Christian, thanks for coming out tonight and being part of the podcast. Some really good information. Next Friday, same deal, no Thursday show. I've got Rich O'Neill and I've got Kevin Schoonover lined up for next Friday night. Again, Brad Paisley is in town, and we got tickets to go see Brad Paisley, and so I'm going to be hanging out with my wife on Thursday night, not with you guys podcasting. We will be doing it on Friday night instead. And
priorities, Jim, priorities.
I do have priorities, yeah. Those are good priorities as long as I've been podcasting.
Speaking of priorities, one of our loyal listeners has requested that I do a special edition on setting up Fios TV on Subsonic. So we're going to have to figure that out.
Yeah, Christian, get with me. We'll figure out maybe during the holidays when you've got a few. You got finals coming up, but maybe when you got a few minutes, we can sit down and record that over a weekend, and you guys can get in on that as well. Hey, speaking of that, if you ever want to do a special podcast, you've got something you want to say, and it's tech related, and maybe just you and me get on Google Hangout for a few minutes and talk about it. Love to record those and get them out through the channel. Just email me, podcast@theaverageguy.tv, or jim@theaverageguy.tv. That's easy to remember. We get that done. Guys, thanks for coming out tonight. Stay around for the post show. We'll do it again next Friday. Typically, we're on Thursdays. But next Friday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out at theaverageguy.tv/live. Thanks for coming out, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.